Hollywood has always been known for its charm, glamour, and, well, let's be honest, a few bad habits. Back in the day, lighting up a cigarette wasn't just normal.
What are you doing, Catherine?
It was part of the image. But for some stars, smoking was more than just an accessory. It was an obsession. While some were paid to puff on screen, others couldn't quit even when the cameras stopped rolling. Join us as we uncover 22 of the worst chain smokers in Hollywood history. You might be surprised by who's on the list. Betty Grable. Betty Grable, with her radiant smile and iconic pin-up photo, was a symbol of Hollywood's golden age. Her wholesome girl-next-door image made her a beloved star, but her real life was far from perfect. Grable, born in St. Louis in 1916, became one of the most successful actresses of her time. Between 1942 and 1951, she was Hollywood's #1 female box office earner, even earning the title of the highest-paid woman in the United States. But Grable's fame wasn't just built on her talent. Did you know that tobacco companies in the 1930s and 1940s paid top Hollywood stars up to $75,000 a year, in today's money, to promote their cigarette brands? Grable, like many of her co-stars, was a heavy smoker on and off the screen. The habit eventually caught up with her. In 1972, after hosting the Academy Awards, she experienced severe breathing difficulties and was rushed to the hospital. Doctors diagnosed her with lung cancer. Sadly, she passed away just a year later at the age of 56. Elizabeth Taylor. It's hard to think of Hollywood without imagining Elizabeth Taylor's violet eyes and dazzling diamonds. She was a star who defined glamour, but behind the sparkle was a woman with deep struggles. Taylor's personal life often overshadowed her career. She was married 8 times to 7 men, fought alcoholism, and endured countless health issues. Speaking of which, smoking was one of her toughest habits. In 1975, an X-ray revealed spots on her lungs, terrifying her into thinking she had cancer. Though it turned out to be a false alarm, it was enough to make Taylor quit smoking for good. Her determination wasn't just about self-preservation. Later in life, she channeled her energy into philanthropy, becoming one of the first celebrities to champion AIDS awareness. She raised millions through her foundations, even taking on roles like the Flintstones to support the cause. After years of illness, Taylor passed away in 2011, leaving behind a legacy as complex and brilliant as the woman herself. Larry King. Larry King was a legendary broadcaster who shaped the world of television and radio. Known for his signature suspenders and smooth interview style, he won numerous awards, including an Emmy and 2 Peabodys. Over his career, King conducted more than 50,000 interviews, cementing his place as one of America's most iconic media figures. However, King's success came with its own challenges. For nearly 40 years, he smoked heavily, up to 3 packs a day. It wasn't until February 1987, when he suffered a heart attack, that he finally quit. "I was scared to death," King admitted. He had ignored warning signs for years, despite knowing his father died of heart disease and that he had his own heart problems. The heart attack became his wake-up call. King quit cold turkey after the heart attack, crediting fear as his motivation. "The next day, I never touched a cigarette again," he said. But quitting wasn't always easy. In an interview, he shared how watching Jodie Foster smoke in The Accused triggered old cravings. "I wondered, what if I wanted one? God, I wouldn't know what I'd do." But well, King didn't let his health scare go to waste. In 1988, he founded the Larry King Cardiac Foundation to help people who couldn't afford treatment for heart disease. Reflecting on his journey, he said, "I got a lucky break. I had a heart attack." It just goes to show how life-changing moments can inspire positive change, even for a lifelong habit like smoking. Lucille Ball. Few stars have left as big a mark on Hollywood as Lucille Ball. Known as the comedic genius behind I Love Lucy, she made audiences laugh for decades. But she too had a habit she couldn't quit, which was smoking. And did you know that it wasn't just casual? She was a lifelong heavy smoker, so much so that she even advertised cigarettes on her show. Lucille didn't just smoke, she had a favorite brand, Chesterfields. She wasn't a fan of Philip Morris, but since they sponsored I Love Lucy, she had to play along. Speaking of which, when a Philip Morris representative caught her smoking Chesterfields on set, she didn't give up her preference. Instead, she cleverly carried her Chesterfields in a Philip Morris tin, keeping her secret while sticking to her favorite smokes. You see, cigarettes weren't just part of Lucy's life, they were part of the show. I Love Lucy was packed with Philip Morris ads, from the opening credits to the commercial breaks. Lucy and Desi even smoked during scenes, often making the act a focal point. Characters would suggest, "Let's all have a cigarette," proudly showing off the Philip Morris pack to viewers. One memorable ad featured Lucy and Desi in matching pajamas, enjoying a goodnight cigarette. Another had them retrieving a carton from a wall safe, reminding viewers that Philip Morris promised no cigarette hangover. And of course, since we're talking about Lucille Ball, we can't leave out Desi Arnaz, her on-screen and real-life husband, Desi Arnaz. Known for his role as Ricky Ricardo on I Love Lucy, Desi brought Cuban charm to television, but he also shared something else with Lucy, a heavy smoking habit. Whether it was cigarettes or Cuban cigars, smoking was a constant in his life, even on the I Love Lucy set. Arnaz's story began in Cuba, where he was born into a prominent family in 1917. His father was a mayor and congressman, while his maternal grandfather worked for Bacardi rum. But when Cuba's sugar market crashed in 1927, the political fallout forced his father into prison, and the family lost everything. Eventually, Desi joined his father in Miami in 1935, learning English and starting over. Despite a tough start in the U.S., Arnaz's talent as a musician led him to success with Xavier Cugat's orchestra, and eventually to Hollywood stardom. But his smoking habit never left him. Arnaz smoked cigars into his 60s and was a regular cigarette smoker for much of his life. In 1986, Desi was diagnosed with lung cancer. By the time Lucille called him on November 30th, his health had deteriorated. Their final conversation was heartfelt. I love you, Lucy told him. Desi responded, I love you too, honey. 2 days later, on December 2nd, he passed away at 69. His ashes were scattered in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico, marking the end of an extraordinary life. Gene Tierney. Gene Tierney was the picture of perfection on screen, flawless skin, high cheekbones, and piercing eyes that mesmerized audiences. But her life was far from picture perfect. Despite her beauty and success, Tierney struggled with deep insecurities and mental health challenges, which she later detailed in her autobiography. Her smoking addiction began during the making of Laura, when studio executives urged her to smoke to give her voice a deeper, huskier tone. I sounded like a mouse, she once admitted, and it didn't take much convincing. What started as a career move became a lifelong habit. Tierney's health began to decline in her later years, and she ultimately died of emphysema on November 6, 1991. A condition that made every breath a struggle. Rosemary Clooney. Rosemary Clooney was a voice that could light up any room. In the 1950s, she was Hollywood's golden girl. Her smooth voice, radiant beauty, and girl-next-door charm made her a favorite across the country. But beneath the glamour, Clooney carried heavy burdens. From a childhood with little parental guidance to a volatile marriage, life wasn't always as sparkling as it seemed. Clooney's struggles didn't end there. She battled addiction, and her longtime smoking habit followed her throughout her life. By early 2002, the effects had caught up to her. Diagnosed with stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer, doctors rushed to remove the upper lobe of her left lung. Even though the surgery was immediate, complications set in. Infections kept her in the hospital for months, and her health didn't recover. Just weeks after leaving, Clooney was back in the hospital. Tragically, she passed away on June 29, 2002, at 74 years old. While Clooney's life was filled with triumphs and challenges, through it all, her incredible voice remained unforgettable. John Wayne. When you think of John Wayne, you picture a larger-than-life figure, the rugged cowboy, the fearless war hero, the man who embodied strength on screen. But behind the legendary image of the Duke was a heavy smoker who couldn't escape the consequences of his habit. Wayne reportedly smoked up to 6 packs of cigarettes a day, which was a shocking number that ultimately led to his battle with lung cancer. In 1964, during a routine physical, doctors discovered the cancer. True to his persona, Wayne tried to face it with his signature toughness. I sat there trying to be John Wayne, he said. But the battle was far from easy. Most of his left lung and 2 ribs were removed during surgery. Afterward, Wayne declared he had licked the big C, but the fight wasn't over. 15 years later, while undergoing gallbladder surgery, doctors found stomach cancer. His body, already weakened from years of smoking and previous treatments, struggled to recover. Wayne passed away on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72. But Wayne's health struggles weren't just tied to smoking. There's speculation that radioactive dust exposure during the filming of The Conqueror in 1954 may have contributed to his illness. But still, his six-pack-a-day habit was undeniably a major factor. And so the man who made over 200 films faced his final battle not as the fearless hero we saw on screen, but as someone whose choices caught up with him. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, the king of cool in classic Hollywood, was rarely seen without a cigarette. Whether he was in Casablanca or the Maltese Falcon, the smoking stick became as much a part of his image as his trench coats and tough guy demeanor. You see, smoking wasn't just a habit for Bogart. It was a signature move. On screen, it added drama, broke up long monologues, and gave his characters that aloof, dispassionate edge. In fact, Hollywood lore says that Bogart first started smoking during a scene with lots of exposition. Concerned it might bore the audience, he suggested putting "two camels effing" in the background for interest. But his director had another idea: cigarettes. From then on, lighting up became Bogart's trademark, adding what producer Rob Long called instant drama. Smoking was more than a prop. It was a statement about his characters, detached anti-heroes who handled life with a smirk and a puff. But Bogart smoked just as much off-screen, often lighting one cigarette after another. This lifestyle came at a steep cost. A heavy smoker and drinker, he spent the last year of his life bedridden with throat cancer. His widow, Lauren Bacall, later described him as frail and pathetic, which was a heartbreaking end for someone who seemed untouchable on screen. Bogart passed away in January 1957 at age 57. The very thing that made him a legend also took his life, proving that cigarettes were never as cool as they seemed. Errol Flynn. This man was the Hollywood star of his time. Known for his roles in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, Flynn's on-screen charisma made him unforgettable. But what really kept audiences fascinated wasn't just his films, it was his wild personal life. Flynn was notorious for his outrageous behavior, from his love affairs to his battles with addiction, and his lifestyle was nothing short of extreme. He smoked 3 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day, drank vodka like water, and even injected himself with cocaine and other opiates. Every day he pushed his body to the limit. Yet somehow, he kept up with his 2 favorite arts, making blockbuster films and seducing anyone who crossed his path. And the public couldn't get enough of Flynn. His autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, didn't shy away from the chaos of his life. He openly shared the stories of his exploits, some of which shocked even the most scandal-hardened fans. Flynn didn't just live on the edge, he was the edge. Despite his larger-than-life reputation, Flynn's lifestyle eventually caught up to him. On October 14, 1959, he suffered a fatal heart attack at just 50 years old. Those who knew him weren't shocked by his passing. They were shocked he had lived as long as he did. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was a force of nature, both on-screen and off. Known for her sharp wit, commanding presence, and unparalleled talent, Davis wasn't just one of Hollywood's greatest actresses, she was a cultural icon. But there was one thing as much a part of her image as her bold performances: her cigarettes. Davis practically owned smoking. Cigarettes weren't just props for her slash, they were part of her identity. As her co-star Henry Fonda once joked, "I've been close to Bette Davis for 38 years, and I have the cigarette burns to prove it." Whether she was playing a sultry femme fatale or a scorned lover, the smoke from her Vantage cigarettes added drama to every scene. Biographer Ed Seekoff described them as her signature, comparing them to Janis Joplin's Southern Comfort or Tom Ford's unbuttoned shirts. Even in real life, Davis was inseparable from her cigarettes. She smoked so much, up to 4 packs a day, that she couldn't go without them, not even during short TV appearances. "If I did not smoke a cigarette," she once said, "they would not know who I was." And no one dared tell her otherwise, not even her dentist who let her light up in his chair. And so her cigarettes became so iconic that when the U.S. Post Office released a stamp featuring Davis in 2008 and edited out her cigarette, fans were outraged. Late in life, Davis was still smoking 100 cigarettes a day, proving she did things her way, always. She died at the age of 91 as a result of breast cancer. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was the epitome of old Hollywood glamour. On screen, she dazzled audiences with her beauty and elegance, becoming a style icon whose looks were mimicked even by Eva Peron. But off-screen, her life told a much darker story. Turner lived a life filled with dramatic highs and devastating lows. She struggled through failed marriages and personal tragedies while battling two relentless addictions: alcohol and smoking. Her love affair with cigarettes became so infamous that photographers would often airbrush them out of her pictures. In 1992, the consequences of her lifestyle came crashing down. Diagnosed with throat cancer, Turner underwent painful radiation treatments. When her cancer went into remission the following year, she celebrated by stepping back into the public eye. Her daughter proudly announced that Turner had finally quit smoking, but it was too late. The cancer returned with a vengeance, leaving Turner frail and in excruciating pain. By the time of her death in 1996, she weighed just 85 pounds. Anne Sheridan. Anne Sheridan hated being called the oomph girl. While it made her a pin-up sensation during World War II, she felt the nickname cheapened her talent. She wanted to be remembered as a serious actress, not a gimmick. But Sheridan's life wasn't just about proving herself. It was about navigating Hollywood's demands. Her contract required her to be seen in nightclubs multiple times a week, where she was rarely without a cigarette in hand. Her co-star Carol Wells noted that Sheridan was always smoking, except when the cameras rolled. Her constant smoking eventually caught up with her. During the filming of her sitcom Pistols and Petticoats, she was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. By January 1967, the disease claimed her life. At just 51 years old, Sheridan's career and legacy were tragically cut short, leaving behind memories of a fiery redhead who lit up the screen, but also lived under the shadow of addiction. Carl Wilson. Carl Wilson, the youngest member of the legendary Beach Boys, was a voice that defined the sound of summer. Known for hits like Good Vibrations and Wouldn't It Be Nice, Wilson was an integral part of the band's harmony. But behind that golden voice was a man battling a silent killer, lung cancer. Wilson started smoking as a teenager, a habit that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His bandmate Mike Love once revealed that Carl had been smoking since he was just 14 years old. By 1997, while at his vacation home in Hawaii, Wilson fell ill and was diagnosed with lung cancer. Despite undergoing chemotherapy, he refused to let the disease stop him. In a true display of his spirit, Carl continued performing with the Beach Boys throughout their summer tour, even as his treatments drained him. By February 6, 1998, Carl's fight came to an end. Surrounded by his family, he passed away in Los Angeles, just 2 months after losing his mother. Yul Brynner. With his bald head and commanding presence, the Broadway legend Yul Brynner became the unforgettable King Mongkut in The King and I. Brynner performed the role an incredible 4,625 times, turning it into a career-defining masterpiece. But behind the stage curtains was a man who started smoking heavily at age 12. Brynner's love for cigarettes, 5 packs a day to be exact, eventually caught up with him. By 1983, he began noticing changes in his voice and was diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer. Even though he had quit smoking in 1971, the damage was already done. But Brynner didn't stop performing. In January 1985, knowing his time was short, he began a farewell Broadway run of The King and I. His 4,000th performance took place just hours after receiving his cancer diagnosis. Despite radiation therapy that made speaking and singing difficult, Brynner pushed forward. His final performance was a heartfelt goodbye to the stage that had made him a star. Shortly before his death on October 10, 1985, Brynner filmed an anti-smoking message. In it, he warned others about the dangers of cigarettes, hoping his story would save lives. His words, much like his performances, left a lasting impact. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen was undeniably a symbol of rugged cool. Known for hits like Bullet and The Great Escape, he brought a unique mix of charm and edge to the screen. Even today, his bad boy style and macho appeal remain iconic. But did you know that behind the tough guy persona was a man with a troubled past and a lifelong struggle with his demons? McQueen had a difficult childhood. Abandoned by both parents, he faced abuse, bounced between relatives, and even turned to crime. But as an adult, his life was just as complicated. McQueen was a 2-pack-a-day smoker, a habit that fit the gritty image he portrayed in films. However, in 1978, a persistent cough forced him to confront his health. By December 1979, the truth came out. McQueen was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma, which is a rare and aggressive lung cancer. This wasn't caused by smoking, but by exposure to asbestos, likely from his time working with materials used in sets or his earlier years in blue-collar jobs. Determined to fight, McQueen sought unconventional treatments in Mexico, but the cancer had already spread throughout his body. In November 1980, during surgery to remove a tumor, he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was just 50 years old. McQueen's death shocked the world. He was a symbol of strength, yet even he couldn't escape the devastating effects of his past choices and exposure. Dean Martin. Dean Martin wasn't just a singer or actor. He was the epitome of cool. Known as the King of Cool and a central member of the Rat Pack, Martin's smooth voice and easy style earned him hits like Everybody Loves Somebody and That's Amore. Despite his success, Martin once humbly said, "I'm no singer, I can carry a tune and I have an easy style." But that easygoing charm masked a more serious habit. Martin was a lifelong heavy smoker and his health took a turn while on tour in 1988. He retired from the public eye in 1995, and later that year, he was diagnosed with lung cancer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Although doctors advised surgery to extend his life, Martin declined. By the time he passed away on Christmas Day 1995, Martin had lived a full and private life. He died of acute respiratory failure caused by emphysema at his Beverly Hills home at the age of 78. In his honor, the lights of the Las Vegas Strip were dimmed, which was quite a fitting tribute for a man who brought so much light to the stage and screen. His final resting place at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery features the epitaph, "Everybody loves somebody sometime." Kathryn Houston. Kathryn Houston, best known for her Emmy-winning roles on The West Wing and Desperate Housewives, had a story as dramatic as her on-screen characters. She started smoking at 16, a habit that would follow her for decades. But in 2001, everything changed. Diagnosed with lung cancer, Houston quit her 45-year smoking addiction cold turkey. She shared her struggles openly, even appearing on The View to offer tips on quitting smoking after announcing her remission in 2007. Despite her resilience, cancer struck again in 2009. This time, doctors found a tumor on her other lung, but Houston wasn't ready to give up. "I'm not the type of personality to take this lying down," she told E! Online. Following surgery and chemotherapy, she was declared cancer-free in 2010, yet the battle wasn't over. In 2012, the cancer returned, taking her life at 72, just 20 days after her Desperate Housewives character also succumbed to cancer on screen. Houston's fight with smoking and cancer became a central theme in her life and even her work. Guest roles on shows like Grey's Anatomy and My Name is Earl revolved around her characters trying to quit smoking. Her real-life determination inspired many, proving that even after decades of addiction, it's never too late to try to quit. Richard Boone. Richard Boone's rugged face and gruff voice were made for westerns, but his life off-screen was no less dramatic. A chain smoker since his youth, Boone smoked up to 100 cigarettes a day, making his habit as intense as the characters he played. Boone wasn't just an actor. He was a man shaped by his wartime experiences in the Navy, which many believed contributed to his struggles with alcohol. He moved to Hawaii in the 1960s, taking a step back from Hollywood. There, he explored local theater and even taught at Flagler College, but his addiction never left him. In 1981, Boone succumbed to throat cancer at 63. His legacy, however, remains tied to the grit and authenticity he brought to every role. Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole was more than just a jazz legend. He was a voice that defined an era. Born Nathaniel Coles in 1919, his smooth, intimate singing style and hits like Mona Lisa, Ramblin' Rose, and The Christmas Song made him a household name. He even became one of the first black artists to have his own television show. breaking barriers while captivating audiences. But behind the scenes, Cole was a lifelong chain smoker. It wasn't just a habit, it was part of his image. He often believed that smoking gave his voice that deep, grainy quality that fans loved so much. Sadly, the price was devastating. In 1964, Cole began losing weight and suffering from back pain. And so a doctor's visit revealed the truth. He had a lung tumor. Even with cobalt treatments and surgery to remove his left lung in January 1965, the cancer was aggressive. Cole passed away just 3 weeks later at the young age of 45. Ironically, decades after his death, Nat King Cole returned to the spotlight thanks to his daughter Natalie. In 1991, she released a virtual duet of their song, Unforgettable, blending his original vocals with hers. It was a touching tribute, but it also served as a reminder of the toll smoking can take. Walt Disney. Walt Disney is a name that sparks instant recognition and admiration. He's remembered as the creative genius behind Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie, and Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. But like so many icons of his era, Disney had a shadowed side. He was a lifelong chain smoker. Disney's smoking habit started after World War I, and it stayed with him until the day he died. His daughter wrote in the LA Times that he preferred unfiltered cigarettes and often smoked pipes. And you see, it wasn't just a habit, it was part of his daily life. Despite building an empire of joy and fantasy, smoking was one of his very real addictions. But in November 1966, doctors discovered lung cancer. Although they tried cobalt therapy, which was a common treatment at the time, but the disease had progressed rapidly. Disney went back to the hospital for surgery to remove part of his lung. Sadly, it wasn't enough. 6 weeks later, on December 15th, just 10 days after his 65th birthday, Walt Disney passed away from circulatory collapse caused by lung cancer. At the time of his death, Disney's second theme park in Florida was still under construction. He had been shaping worlds of imagination and magic while battling a habit that would take his life. George Harrison. He may have been known as the Quiet Beatle, but George Harrison's influence on music and culture was anything but silent. As the Beatles' lead guitarist, Harrison brought Indian instruments and spirituality into the world of rock, giving us iconic hits like Norwegian Wood. But behind the music, Harrison struggled with a lifelong habit that eventually caught up with him: smoking. Harrison's relationship with cigarettes was complicated. He smoked, quit, started again, and quit once more. But in 1997, a lump on his neck turned his life upside down. It was oral cancer. Harrison didn't shy away from the truth, admitting, "I got it purely from smoking." He underwent surgery and radiation, and doctors assured him it was more of a warning than a death sentence. Sadly, the warning wasn't enough. 4 years later, Harrison was back in the hospital, this time for lung cancer surgery. Then came radiation treatments for a brain tumor. The cancer spread quickly, and on November 29, 2001, Harrison passed away at just 58 years old. Harrison's death was a heartbreaking loss, but he faced it with grace. Following Hindu tradition, his ashes were scattered in India's sacred rivers, which was a reflection of his deep spirituality. While his legacy includes timeless music and almost £100 million in wealth, it also serves as a reminder of the price paid for smoking. As Harrison once said, his cancer wasn't random. It was the consequence of a habit he carried for too long. These stars may have left us, but their legacies, both inspiring and cautionary, live on. Are there any other stars or topics from Hollywood history you'd like us to explore? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.